The Kenyan savannah shimmered under the scorching October sun, a vast golden canvas baking silently. Heat mirages danced on the horizon, distorting the acacia trees into wavering shadows. The only sound for miles was the insistent hum of cicadas and the distant, mournful cry of a guinea fowl. But this morning, the silence was shattered by a desperate emergency call that reached Dr. Zara Kimani. An adult female elephant was deceased, and her 18-month-old calf was refusing to leave her side. Fueled by an urgency that always clawed at her and a raw, recent personal loss that made every life feel acutely precious, Zara raced across the dusty tracks. Her trusted field assistant, Quito, navigated their Land Cruiser through the rough terrain, the vehicle kicking up a plume of red dust that hung in the still air. When they arrived, the scene punched Zara in the gut. Amara, a calf barely reaching her mother's shoulder, pushed against the massive, lifeless flank, a tiny, determined force against an immovable wall. Her efforts were heartbreakingly futile. Zara felt a familiar ache in her chest, a primal pang for the innocent. Her eyes, they hold an ancient sadness, Zara thought, her gaze fixed on Amara's desperate attempts to rouse her mother. I can't let her lose everything. Moments later, Dr. Imani Juma, a veteran wildlife veterinarian, pulled up in his own vehicle. He was quick, efficient, his seasoned eyes scanning the scene. Sudden heart failure, Juma declared, his voice devoid of the raw emotion Zara felt, but carrying the weight of experience. He moved with a practiced calm, already assessing the logistics. We have to tranquilize the calf, Zara, Juma stated, his eyes fixed on Amara, already swaying with exhaustion and grief. She's a sitting target out here. Predators won't wait long. Zara's gaze, however, had drifted back to the deceased mother. Something about the scene felt off. Amidst the expected dirt and dust, she noticed a faint, almost imperceptible metallic sheen on the mother's tusks. As she drew a fraction closer, a subtle, almost chemical scent, faint beneath the smell of earth and elephant, brushed against her nostrils. It was peculiar, out of place, a dissonance in the natural symphony of the wild. But Zara quickly dismissed it. For now. Amara's immediate danger screamed louder than any strange detail. The calf was vulnerable, her small body shaking with grief, unprotected. Zara, we have a narrow window, Juma pressed, his voice firm, pulling her back to the immediate crisis. She will be torn apart. Zara's heart ached with a profound conflict. The choice to traumatize Amara with a tranquilizer, to force separation, went against her deepest convictions. She knew the psychological toll it would take, but Juma was right. Amara's relentless, almost human-like grieving, her desperate nudges and soft rumbles against her mother's silent form, made her a beacon for hyenas and lions. The metallic sheen, the subtle chemical scent, they were a tiny, almost imperceptible red flag, a whisper of a conspiracy amidst this overwhelming tragedy. But how could she pursue it when Amara's life hung precariously in the balance? The sun beat down relentlessly, amplifying the tension, pressing the terrible urgency of the situation into Zara's very bones. The choice had to be made, and it had to be made now. Zara, this isn't negotiable. Dr. Juma's voice cut through the heavy air, echoing the harsh reality of the savannah. By sunset, Amara must be away from here. If you can't manage it, I will tranquilize her. His ultimatum hung between them, stark and unyielding. Zara grappled with the decision, her moral compass spinning wildly. The standard procedure, Juma's way, was logical, safe, proven. Yet it felt profoundly wrong, a violation of the grieving calf's fragile spirit. Just as the internal debate threatened to overwhelm her, a subtle movement caught Zara's eye. Quito, her loyal border collie, had quietly slipped from the Land Cruiser. With a surprising calm that seemed to ripple through the tense atmosphere, he began to approach Amara. His body language was a masterclass in non-aggression. Head lowered, tail gently swaying, steps slow and deliberate. He settled a respectful distance from the calf, his posture relaxed, his vigil patient. Amara, initially defensive, her ears slightly flared, observed Quito with the same ancient sadness in her eyes, not aggression. It was a silent conversation, an unspoken understanding passing between the grieving calf and the empathetic dog. That is remarkable, Zara, Juma whispered, a rare note of genuine astonishment in his voice. I have never seen anything like that. This unexpected bond ignited a flicker of hope in Zara. "We have another option," she proposed, her voice firmer than she felt, pushing against years of protocol. "Let Quito lead her away, naturally." She risked hours of precious time against all standard practice. "If we tranquilize her, she will wake up traumatized and alone. Quito has a gift. Animals trust him." Juma considered her, his gaze lingering on the quiet interaction between dog and elephant. Perhaps it was his respect for Zara's profound expertise, or the recent echo of her own loss that softened his resolve. But he sighed. "Until sunset, Zara, that's all I can give you." As Quito began his slow, patient dance, taking a few steps, pausing, looking back at Amara, slowly increasing the distance, Zara saw her window. While Juma's attention remained primarily on the delicate process of coaxing Amara away, Zara moved. With quick, almost surreptitious movements, she knelt beside the deceased mother. Her gloved fingers moved swiftly, collecting a small sample of the dry, reddish soil directly beneath the peculiar discoloration on the mother elephant's tusks. Then, with a sterile swab, she traced the faint metallic sheen on the tusks and the odd, almost crystalline residue she'd noticed on the skin. Her actions were clandestine, fueled by a growing suspicion that something wasn't right with Juma's sudden heart failure diagnosis. The metallic scent, the strange discoloration, they whispered of something far more sinister than a natural end. Quito's organized behavior was remarkable. He wasn't merely wandering, he was guiding, a silent shepherd nudging his charge towards the sparse cover of a distant acacia grove. Amara, though still hesitant, was slowly following, her immense sorrow momentarily overshadowed by a nascent curiosity, or perhaps a desperate need for a gentle presence. A knot of dread tightened in Zara's stomach, battling with a fierce determination. Her compassion for Amara, her scientific curiosity, her gut feeling, they were leading her into uncharted and potentially dangerous territory. She knew with chilling certainty that she was embarking on a secret investigation, one that could reveal truths far more disturbing than a simple natural death. Days blurred into a relentless cycle of exhaustion and despair. Amara, the young elephant calf, remained a shadow of her former self, refusing all but the most vital sips of water. Food held no appeal for her grieving heart, and her gaunt frame was a constant, painful reminder of the life she clung to so tenuously. Zara, too, felt the weight of the sleepless nights and the emotional drain. It was Zawadi, Zara's colleague and close friend, who arrived, a beacon of practical support. Her eyes, sharp and compassionate, immediately recognized the profound exhaustion etched onto Zara's face. "You look like you're running on fumes," Zawadi observed gently, then added, "My grandmother used to say that grief must be fed before hunger can return." Zawadi's simple wisdom struck a chord. Zara realized her approach had been too clinical, too focused on the physical. She changed tack. Sitting close to Amara, she began to speak, not to a patient, but to a fellow soul in pain. She spoke of her own recent loss, of the raw, tearing anguish of absence, of the slow, arduous path to healing. It was a silent bond, forged in shared sorrow. Amara, for the first time, held Zara's gaze. Her trunk, once limp and listless, moved tentatively, a soft brush against the air, a profound acknowledgement of Zara's shared grief. It was a tiny gesture, but it cracked open a sliver of hope. And then, a monumental moment. Amara reached out, her trunk carefully plucking a single leaf from a low-hanging branch. It was a choice for life, a testament to the fragile power of connection, quietly encouraged by Quito, who lay nearby, a watchful, steady presence. Days began to establish a new rhythm. Zara, Quito, and Amara became an unlikely family, sharing meals beneath the wide-open sky. Zara would share her small ration of fruit with Amara, and the calf would gently accept, her appetite slowly returning. With Quito as her playful companion, Amara began to rediscover joy. She'd push logs, her tiny tusks already showing their strength, splash in the muddy puddles after a rare rain shower, her trumpets echoing with an innocent glee. These were acts of pure, unadulterated healing, a testament to resilience. One evening, as Zara sat by their small campfire, the fading light casting long, dancing shadows, Amara approached. With a grace surprising for her size, she lowered her head and rested her muddy trunk gently on Zara's lap. It was a profound moment of trust, an unprecedented act of gratitude. "Hello, sweet girl," Zara whispered, her voice thick with emotion, stroking the warm, rough skin. "You are doing so well. Your mother would be so proud." Yet even as this fragile peace settled, the other part of Zara's mind had been relentlessly active. Discreetly, meticulously, she had followed up on the samples she had collected that first day. The metallic sheen, the subtle chemical scent, the faint discoloration. They had haunted her, a persistent dissonance. And then the lab results arrived. Delivered late one evening via secure satellite link, the report glowed eerily in the dim light of her tent. Zara's hands trembled as she read. Her worst fears were confirmed, amplified, chilling her to the bone. The analysis revealed a low-grade, slow-acting toxin. And worse, it matched biomarkers linked to illegal, rare earth mining activity, specifically identified in a nearby, supposedly protected area. It wasn't natural heart failure. Amara's mother had been deliberately poisoned, a silent, insidious kill. The truth hit Zara like a physical blow. The heartbreak she had chosen to heal, the vulnerable calf she had taken under her wing, was now inextricably linked to a dangerous web of corporate greed and silent murder. A terrifying realization dawned. By saving Amara, she had unwittingly pulled herself into something far larger, far darker than she could have ever imagined. Amara continued to grow stronger with each passing day. Her appetite had returned with a vengeance, and the once gaunt calf was now thriving. Her playful antics with Quito, a constant source of joy in the isolated camp. Zara spent hours observing, documenting every sign of progress in her journal. But interspersed amongst the notes on Amara's weight gain and social development were coded entries. Biomarker trace, source coordinates, unusual residue. One afternoon, Zara watched, a tender smile on her lips, as Amara discovered a new game. With a surprising burst of coordination, the young elephant learned to suck water into her trunk and spray Quito, who yelped in mock protest, shaking himself vigorously before charging back for more. Amara's contented rumbling sounds, deep and resonant, had completely replaced the mournful calls of grief that once echoed across the savannah. The sight warmed Zara's heart, even as a familiar pang of dread struck her. The thought of releasing Amara to a wild herd loomed, a necessary step for the calf's long-term well-being, but one Zara dreaded with a fierce protectiveness. Zawadi, whom Zara affectionately called Mercy due to her compassionate nature, visited a few days later, her gentle presence a welcome solace. She watched Amara and Quito, a soft smile on her face. "She's magnificent, Zara," Mercy said, her voice quiet. "But she needs to be with other elephants soon. They are her true family." Mercy's words were a gentle reminder of Zara's duty, a duty that now felt impossibly complicated. Zara grappled internally with the lab results, the stark truth of the toxin's presence burning behind her eyes. Heart failure was a lie, a convenient cover for a calculated crime. Her moral convictions screamed for exposure, for justice, but the cold reality of the immense personal risk involved was a heavy counterweight. "They silence animals," she whispered to herself one night, staring into the flickering embers of the campfire. "What would they do to a vet who talks?" She knew the implications of exposing the illegal mining operations and the toxic footprint they left. It wasn't just pollution, it was deliberate, calculated murder. And such operations were never small-time. They were backed by powerful, hidden corporate or even governmental interests. Revealing this truth would not just put a target on her back, it would extend to Quito and even to Amara, a beacon of her defiance. The initial human danger she had dimly perceived that first day wasn't merely the risk of a calf falling prey to predators. It was the far more insidious danger of human greed and ruthlessness. She watched Amara, oblivious to the danger, frolicking with Quito. Her innocence, a fragile shield Zara felt compelled to protect. The weight of Amara's deceased mother pressed on Zara's shoulders, a silent, insistent plea for justice. It was a burden she couldn't ignore, a debt she felt she owed. Quietly, subtly, Zara began to gather more information. She started cross-referencing satellite images with known mining zones, making discrete inquiries, trying to pinpoint the true perpetrators without drawing unwanted attention. Every piece of data she collected, every whisper of corruption, tightened the knot of dread in her stomach. The decision point was fast approaching, a precipice she knew she would have to cross. How much was she willing to risk for a truth that could shatter her world and the fragile peace she had built around Amara and Quito? All right, you guys, this story just keeps getting deeper, darker, and more dangerous. If you thought the last part with Amara's mother being poisoned was shocking, you won't believe what happens next. The stakes are getting incredibly high, and Zara is walking right into the heart of a conspiracy that threatens not just her, but everyone around her. So buckle up, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video because the chilling truth Zara uncovers will make you question everything. The difficult journey to Bibi Asha's sanctuary was an exercise in strained nerves. Amara, despite weeks of healing, was visibly anxious, confined in the specialized transport trailer. Her rumbling calls, low and mournful, echoed from within, each sound a fresh wound in Zara's heart. Quito, ever present, responded with soft, reassuring whines from the back of the Land Cruiser, his head cocked towards the trailer. Zara drove slowly, meticulously, her eyes constantly scanning the remote roads. Every distant dust cloud, every glint of sun on metal, triggered a jolt of paranoia. Her heightened awareness, born of the grim lab results, transformed the familiar landscape into a potential threat. Finally, the sanctuary gates came into view. Bibi Asha, a woman whose face was etched with the wisdom of decades spent among elephants, greeted them. Her presence radiated a quiet strength, immediately drawing Quito to her side, then Amara's tentative trunk. "Hello, little mother," Bibi Asha said, her voice a soothing balm, her eyes warm. "Welcome to your new home. Here we understand loss." Amara's trunk reached tentatively towards Bibi Asha, sensing trust, but she still clung to Zara and Quito, her emotional anchors. Bibi Asha, with a practiced gentleness, began the delicate process of introduction. She led them toward a section of the enclosure where Njeri Ofai, a magnificent matriarch who had tragically lost her own calf years ago, stood patiently. Njeri approached Amara with slow, deliberate empathy. Her trunk, ancient and knowing, reached out, gently caressing Amara's back. Then her face, a clear maternal gesture of comfort and acceptance. It was a profound, almost spiritual exchange, the unspoken language of elephants. Amara, however, wasn't ready. She pulled back slightly, her small body trembling. The newness, the profound offer of a different family was too soon. She was torn between the deep new bond she'd formed with Zara and Quito, and the instinctual pull towards her own kind. As the emotional weight of Amara's tentative integration settled, Zara's other senses, sharpened by the conspiracy, flared. Her eyes, ever vigilant, caught a flicker of something out of place. Parked conspicuously far from the compound, nestled just beyond the perimeter fence near a dense thicket, was an unfamiliar vehicle. It was too clean for a local safari jeep, too discreet for a tourist. Or perhaps, she mused, it was the man she'd briefly seen amongst the sanctuary staff, his gaze lingering on their arrival a beat too long. Her instincts screamed danger. As Bibi Asha continued her patient work with Amara and Njeri, Zara discreetly walked the perimeter, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The powerful entities behind the illegal mining wouldn't just poison an elephant, they would go to any lengths to protect their operations. They wouldn't dare. "Not here," Zara whispered, but the words felt hollow even to her own ears. This sacred space, a haven for lost souls, felt compromised. The integration process was a delicate dance, with Njeri patiently offering connection, but Zara felt the growing shadow of an external threat. Her personal risk had now expanded to encompass the entire sanctuary, every life within its protected fences. This chilling realization only hardened her resolve to protect Amara and expose the truth, yet it made the path forward more terrifying than ever before. On the fifth day, the moment finally arrived. Amara, after days of tentative explorations and hesitant withdrawals, took a deep breath. With Quito trotting confidently ahead, providing an extraordinary final lead, she walked through the open gate, stepping into the waiting embrace of Njeri and the herd. It was a profound release, a bittersweet victory. Quito, his work magnificently done, settled calmly at Njeri's feet, his presence a silent reassurance not just to Amara, but to the entire herd. It was an ultimate act of organized animal empathy and trust, a bridge forged between species. Amara, after a moment of hesitation, finally accepted Njeri's gentle touch, leaning into the warmth of the maternal bond, slowly but surely integrating into her new family. Zara watched, tears streaming down her face, a mix of heartbreak and immense pride. Her promise, a silent vow whispered to her own mother years ago, felt fulfilled in Amara's survival, in this second chance at life. The little calf, once on the brink, was now safe. Years passed like the shifting sands of the savannah. Amara grew into a magnificent young adult, her tusks beginning to show the distinctive curve of her lineage. And Jerry's attentive matriarch in training. Quito, ever loyal, aged gracefully by Zara's side, his muzzle silvered, his steps a little slower, but his spirit undimmed. Zara, using the undeniable evidence meticulously gathered from Amara's mother's death, had quietly begun her war. It was not a dramatic public confrontation, but a relentless, insidious fight against the illegal mining operation and its shadowy corporate backers. She worked discreetly, a phantom warrior, sharing her damning data with trusted NGOs, investigative journalists, and environmental lawyers. She faced subtle threats, unexplained system crashes, and whispers of cover-ups, each a chilling confirmation of the powerful forces she was up against. The conspiracy was vast, far-reaching, but Zara was unyielding. Then, during one of her regular, cherished visits to the sanctuary, a moment of unprecedented gratitude unfolded. As Zara approached the watering hole, Amara spotted her. The magnificent elephant trumpeted joyfully and ran toward her. But this time, a tiny calf, no more than a few months old, tottered beside her, a miniature version of its mother. Amara, with an intelligence that defied explanation, brought her calf right up to Zara and Quito, nudging the baby gently forward. It was a profound act of sharing, of love, of acknowledgement for the original family who had saved her. "He is perfect, Amara," Zara whispered, tears streaming anew, reaching out a trembling hand to touch the tiny trunk. "Absolutely perfect." In that moment, Zara understood the true scale of the human forces she was fighting. It wasn't just a single crime, a single poisoned elephant. It was systemic corruption, a vast network of greed threatening entire ecosystems, countless lives, human and animal alike. Her final confrontation was not a single event, but a quiet, relentless battle for justice, fueled by Amara's story, a legacy of defiance. Zara knew what she had to do. She decided to write Amara's full story, not as a dry scientific report, but as a compelling narrative of love, loss, and resilience, embedding the chilling truth of the conspiracy within its pages. It would be a testament to the powerful force of love and empathy, a living legacy that triumphed over loss and human greed, leaving behind a call to action, a hope that the hidden human forces would one day be brought to light.